Welcome to BizBytes, brought to you by Com Together, helping businesses like yours build their brand through telling amazing stories to engage and grow audiences on multiple platforms. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of BizBytes. And the guest I have with me today, well, we've encountered each other on a couple of occasions in the past, but he has a fascinating business and a fascinating approach to it. So I thought it'd be great to have him on the program. Terry, welcome to BizBytes.
Thank you. Good to be here. Appreciate it.
And as I do with all of my guests, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you and your business.
As you mentioned earlier, my name's Terry Kerr. I'm the general manager here at RecruitForce. We are a recruitment agency with a difference. We've designed it under a different approach, and the whole idea of collaborating between the director and myself to start RecruitForce in the beginning came from a strange place. It's quite an amazing journey. I came out of another industry. I was in for almost 2 decades, and looking to sort of put that industry behind me, just basically out of looking for something new. I've always wanted to be in an industry where I'm finding solutions for people, where I get to spend time with people, and genuinely have an offer or a solution to problems that they have, that would serve a relationship, a binding relationship over long periods of time. So I looked long and hard, I guess, for an opportunity in a new industry, and I came across recruitment. I had a good friend of mine who was working for another recruitment agency at the time, one of the big guys there in the city. I approached him and said, I'd like to spend some time working for your company to see what this industry is like. And he said to me, he didn't have a position for me at the time, so I worked for free for 2 weeks, just to see what it's like. It alarmed me, the industry. I thought it was a little bit more solutions finding, and when I say solutions finding, I meant solutions for people, as much as it was going to be for businesses. But it turned out it was not so much a solution for people; it was a solution for the business looking for the people, and the focus was that way. So I just felt that churn and burn was too much for me. Wasn't my style, wasn't what I was looking for. So I left. Landed with another company, with another recruitment agency who, during the interview, the language that they were using was very much, it was my language. It was about helping candidates find the right place to work. It was about helping businesses find the right candidates, and almost like a matchmaking service. We met in the middle with both parties, and I felt that was the best way for some. I know what fills my cup, and I thought that was the best way to do it. So I started with this company. It didn't take long. It was less than a month, and the major business partner left and took most of the business with him. The whole business actually went into hell in a handbag at the time. The owners had to spend time away, and then eventually one of them got whisked off to jail for nothing to do with the business, just stuff outside the business. So yeah, I went from learning the business to running the business in a fairly short period of time. It was a baptism by fire, and to be honest, I wouldn't change that. I know customer service inside and out. I've been in the customer service industry since I was 15. I'm 45. But there was a lot for me to learn behind the scenes in recruitment. How the administration side of it works. But I always had my idea when I first started in this industry on how I'd do it if I had my own opportunity. So I met a gentleman by the name of Neil Fairley. He was working 1 floor below me in the building at the time when all this was happening. I got to know him over coffee downstairs. We liked the cut of each other's jib, had some good long chats. And when I told him that this particular recruitment agency was going down due to COVID, he endeavoured to purchase the company. And by the grace of God, that didn't happen. It went down. Neil and I had a coffee one day, and he turned around and said to me, "Hey, look, if I started my own recruitment agency, would you like to run it?"
Mhm.
And I mean, 20 years into the future flashed by my eyes in a split second, and I said yes. Like, I had a good understanding of exactly how I wanted to do things. I mean, I'd spent 2.5, 3 years previous to this interviewing business owners, decision makers on what's wrong with recruitment, because coming into this industry, I was blown away by the negative response towards recruitment by business owners, decision makers, applicants, candidates. It was actually a little bit overwhelming,
It's
and
not a fun
quickly. So,
process. It's not a fun process at all. I mean, it's been some time since I've personally been in the end of using a recruitment company to find a job, but it's a really hard process, and
well, it is, yeah.
it shouldn't be, but it's I think I mean my great recruitment story, for those that have delved into my history, know that
Yeah.
one of my roles for a number of years, well before I started this business, was working for a company that owns a significant part of the funeral industry in Australia, and they're the only large company in that space. And when at the time I decided it was right to start looking for another opportunity, when I went to any recruitment agencies, they said, "Oh, great! Well, we'll find you a job as a marketing person in the funeral industry." And I went, "There's only one job in that industry, and I've had it for the last 7 years." And they just couldn't get their heads around
Yeah.
where to put me. And I'm like, "But surely my skills are transferable anywhere. It's not industry specific." And I found that was kind of typical in some experiences that I personally have had. And I know what
Well,
you
Anthony,
mean. It's not right.
the sending you back into the funeral game would have been the path of least resistance, which is the path, unfortunately, a lot of recruitment seeks.
Mm,
Um, you know, it's what we do. We center around character. We've trademarked the term character based recruitment. We were always going to do that for a reason. We center everything around character because character transcends industries. You mentioned before that your skills are translatable. Of course they are, but so is your character.
mm.
And skills are fairly easily identified. They're on your resume. They can be checked via reference checking. So we can use certain applications or certain formulas that we use to triangulate whether your skills are transferable, but it's your character that may not be. And if you're looking to leave an industry behind, I mentioned before, I spent nearly 20 years in my previous industry, and I very much wanted to put that in my rearview mirror, pun intended. And, for me to then be suggested by a recruitment agency, "Hey, look at all your skills. Why don't you go and sell some cars or something like that?" You know what I mean? Like it's the path of least resistance. It's to get you in and get you out and get you into a business and get them paid. And unfortunately, the self-serving nature of what recruitment has been in my experience in the past almost meant that I left it immediately. Like I mentioned to you before, I went to work for a friend of mine for free. The reason I left his business was, we were all sitting around a boardroom table talking about, new orders and whatnot, and, filling out the spreadsheets and, updating CRMs and all those sorts of things. And, I had one of the salespeople say he needed these 2 Boilermakers for Brendale, which is North Brisbane. And it didn't take 10 minutes for him to have 11 resumes in his hand. And then the manager said, send these 11 resumes off to the business and they'll tell us which one they want to interview or who they want to interview. And I thought, well, hang on a second, do any of those candidates know you're about to send their details off to a business? Do they want to work in Brendale? Do they want to do that kind of work?
Mm.
It were Boilermakers. Are these guys wanting to do site work, or are they wanting to do, factory work, or they want to do fabrication? They want to do. But there was just so much to it, and I thought, no one's asked. So someone's going to give these guys a call and say, "Hey, guess what? This company over in Brendale wants to interview you. Go for an interview." And it just felt like that was an exceptional way of controlling your candidates. But by virtue of that, no control was given to the candidate in any way, shape, or form, other than to say, no, I don't want to go to an interview there. And then you can imagine where the sort of sour taste that would have left. But I just thought that there was just such a lack of care and regard.
I'll just share with you then that how a version of that story. So taking you back to that, when I got that job in the funeral industry, I remember the recruitment company, it wasn't until the second or even possibly even the third interview that they actually bothered to tell me that it was in the funeral industry. They were recruiting. They were recruiting for communications and marketing, and doing it in a way that said that because. And what actually, when I found out what later on, what actually happened was by the time we got to the third interview, they lost a number of candidates because as soon as they said funeral industry, it just turned people off. Now that's all to do with how they marketed it. It was just it was not a negative experience at all. I thoroughly enjoyed my time working in the industry. And it was just interesting the whole process and it was very revealing, and obviously that was for some time ago, and I'm hoping that some things have changed in the sector since then. But it is a sector that's ripe for doing something different, and I guess that's kind of the approach that you're taking, isn't it? That it is a little bit different the way you go about it.
It is, and I mentioned before that I took a lot of notes down on what's wrong with recruitment, and I'm talking. There's a good between three and four notepads full of these notes taken from various business owners and decision makers, as I mentioned earlier. I remember sitting there going, if I did this myself, I have identified the holes in this industry, and I would like to start a business that obviously identifies the holes in the industry, addresses them, and works from within them. So. Sitting with Neil Fairley, the director, and discussing how we would do things, we sat down and, we started with with a tree and a schematic on working out, from the first day you meet the client to, till the field team member or FTM going on board. What's the step? What are the steps? What's the process? Where is our focus? And we very, very early on in that discussion identified that we would be a candidate-centric company, not a client-centric company. And that may sound like I care more about my candidates than I do about my clients, but that's not the case, because if I'm candidate-centric, if I understand what fills the cup of the candidate, if I understand what will keep a candidate in a job long term, and I don't mean keep a candidate in a job, I mean what would attract a candidate to stay in a job long term, then I can identify long-term candidates for a business. So by virtue of me being candidate-centric, I'm actually helping the client more so than if I was just making sure everything was perfect for my client. You know what I mean? Sometimes there needs to be focus on both equally. You know what I mean? When I say sometimes, I mean all the time. Everything that we do is win-win. All of our negotiations with our clients, all of our negotiations with our candidates, and everything in between has to be win-win. So when a candidate starts with a client, the client has something to offer the candidate, but the candidate has something to offer the client. It's always win-win. It can't be, and the two offers the offer that we have for our clients is that we have a no fee for the recruitment process offer. We don't charge for it. We don't charge for any of the ads that we put up, the time we spend or whatnot. We don't charge for any of those things. That's a free process. We offset that by keeping the successful candidate on our books for the 16-week getting to know you period. And when that getting to know you period has run its course and the candidate wants to stay with the client and the client would like to bring the candidate on in a full-time role, then they can do so at no extra charge also. There's no charge for that. So by what that offers our clients is we may go through 10, 15, 20 candidates and not find the right one. And then when we do find the right one, it hasn't cost them any money in the meantime. I mean, we haven't put anyone forwards for them to give them a go, see how they'll be. You know what I mean? We don't have that suck it and see approach here. We don't believe in it. Our interview processes are very, they're long. And my interviews with any one of my candidates goes for between an hour and 10 and an hour and 40 or 50 minutes each interview. And that's because I get to know the candidate. I get to understand, again, what fills their cup. I get to understand, what they've enjoyed about certain positions they've had in the past, what they want to avoid based on their experiences in the past. We talk about their family. I would talk to our candidates about what they do on the weekend. What makes them happy when they're not at work. What are your hobbies? Because going forwards, I also have an understanding of how our client ticks and the sort of person they're looking for, the sort of energy that they're looking for. I've met and understood the sentiment coming from their immediate report, who they'll be reporting to immediately. And number one reason why most people leave any business is because of their immediate report. They don't get along with them. So it's important that I understand that. So by the time all of that comes together, there's no suck it and see approach. We haven't thrown anyone against the walls of a business, and hope it's stuck like cooked spaghetti. It's far more of an exact process, and our percentage of getting it right is extraordinarily high.
It makes a difference. It makes a difference when I know it's basic marketing, and a lot of people think of marketing as very much an external exercise, but it's as much an internal exercise. And it's that value alignment when you have the values of the individuals who run the business, and you need to have the alignment of the staff with them and with the overall business, because as you're saying, that you can hire the best person in the world at an individual level, but the fundamental difference could be that that person wants to grow the business to be an international conglomerate, and the owner of the business only wants it to be a local business. You're fundamentally opposed. It doesn't matter how good the candidate is at what they do. If your values are so differently aligned, it's not going to work. And I think that too often people have been trapped in the past by a resume and the basic ticking some boxes when it comes to an interview process, because it's not impossible to put an act on to a degree in what is often a shorter interview process. So the fact that you're going into something more in depth makes that a lot harder.
Yeah, indeed. And we also focus a lot on white collar and sales as well. We have, two separate businesses. We have RecruitForce that very much looks after our blue collar engagements. And when it comes to higher end management, sales, we have the sales recruitment company. So they have two very separate lanes, and they never the twain shall they meet. There's a very different way of doing things. But the reality is we use character-based recruitment and the methodology behind it and the questions that we ask and the focus that we have in equal parts for both companies. While the pursuit for RecruitForce is blue collar and sales recruitment company is white collar, methodology doesn't change. Methodology doesn't change at all, because the candidates don't change, just because they're going for, you were saying before about, with a shorter interview, it's easier to be a professional interviewee.
Yep.
By the time I've finished asking my questions and engaging with our candidates, I really don't come across many situations, or really any at all, where the candidate feels like they need to be a professional interviewee anymore. It takes, we're in you mode. And when I say you candidate, we're in candidate mode for so long before we even talk about the job, that defenses sort of start to come down. You know what I mean? They sort of start to think, candidates, we get extraordinary amounts of feedback from our candidates saying, this the process that we've gone through is wonderful. Like, this is the best process for hiring I've ever been through. I was able to just say what I felt, and you were giving me updates on at the moment as to how you felt about my candidacy for this particular position. And, so, that whole professional interviewee situation really doesn't come into play much with us, or if it does, it's not in play for very long, because they work out pretty quickly that I'm there for them. And by virtue of that, I'm there for the client. I don't need to say that, but if I'm there for the candidate to make sure that they dodge bullets, it's not uncommon for me to stop an interview sort of halfway through, a quarter of the way through, and say, hey, look, I appreciate your style. I appreciate the energy that you bring. I understand now what it is that you're looking for. I see that you're looking for career progression. I see that you don't want to be, on the tools for much longer. You want to move more into management and looking after apprentices and those sorts of things. This particular company is owned by Ma and Pa Kettle, and their son does all of that. So there's no way you're going to have an opportunity for those things. So let's stop this interview regarding this particular position and restart this interview based on what it is you're looking for going forwards. And let me see if I can help you with that, because there was a time when recruitment agencies were called job agencies. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
I don't know if you're old enough for that, Anthony.
Yes.
So
yes.
What we do should be lost in our title, right? What we do is lost in the title of what the business is. So, though we have our main aim is to find someone to fill the position, our singular aim is to make sure that the people that we interview are being put forward to the right business. It's a big thing for us. And, sometimes it means we have to interview more people than we would probably need to. But the reality is, I could send someone over to a business who's able to do the job well, gets along with everybody, you know what I mean? And it's putting out incredible, their output's incredible. They're getting along with everyone, wonderful attitude. They're bringing everyone lunch every day, but they're gone in a week.
Yes.
They're out of there, and the business owner's like, I don't even know what the hell happened. What the hell happened, Terry? Your guy came and left and he was wonderful. Well, that's because we didn't ask the right questions, and people will leave one job and start another one based on career opportunities, rate of pay, distance to travel. There's just all of these different things, and it's if we don't know what they all are, then I can't avoid them going forwards. You know what I mean? I can't handle those objections early if we don't know what they are. So, that's what character-based recruitment's all about.
I hope you've been enjoying the conversation so far. We look forward to bringing you part 2 in the next episode of Biz Bites. Biz Bites is brought to you by ComTogether for all your marketing needs, so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.